Hi, I'm Scott with HHA Sports. New for 2017, we came out with a 3-pin version for our Optimizer sightline. So now, whether you're shooting the Optimizer Lite, the Optimizer Ultra, or the Optimizer Kingpin, you have your choice of a single pin version or a 3-pin version. The purpose of this video is to show how to set up your 3-pin version of your sight. So regardless of the sight model, whether it's a Lite, Ultra, or Kingpin, the setup is going to be the same for the three. So in this video, we're going to show you how to set up your 3-pin according to the instructions that came with your sight. The first step is to set up your yardage tape. So in this step, it's the same whether it's a 3-pin or a single pin. You have to find your pre-printed yardage tape. And again, the process is the same. And you're going to shoot 2 yardages. You're going to shoot 20 yards and then either 40 or 60, depending on your capabilities, what you have set up for a shooting range and stuff like that. So in this video, we're going to do the 20 and the 60 method, which is the most accurate way of doing it. So the first step is we're going to shoot at 20 yards and get our first number on our setup tape. So you'll see that the model I'm shooting today is an Optimizer Ultra. So we're going to get the first number on our setup tape, and then we're going to go back to 60 yards and get our second number on the setup tape, and then we'll subtract the 2, and that'll give us our tape number. So step number 1, we're going to shoot at 20 yards. All right, so we just got done shooting our first round of arrows at 20 yards, and we made a few small adjustments, and my 20-yard mark is mark 3. That's going to be my starting point. But I want to point out that when I shot at 20, I was using my top pin on my 3-pin, and I was making all my major adjustments actually moving my scope housing. So the idea behind getting your 20 mark is you want it to be as close to 0 as possible. And I was able to achieve that by a combination of moving my scope housing and also moving my top pin individually. So now my top pin is sighted in at 20 yards with my yardage wheel bottomed out at number 3. So now that we have the 20-yard mark, we're going to go back to 60 yards and adjust our dial to compensate for the yardage difference, but then we're going to continue to aim with our top pin. So really we're sighting in just like we would with one of our single pins, and we're using our top 20-yard mark just to get the tape number. Once we have the tape number, then we can go on to sighting in our middle and our bottom pin. So we're going to drop back to 60, shoot some arrows, get that second number, and then we'll put our tape on. All right, so we just got done shooting at 60 yards. So we had already shot 20 yards, and now we just got done shooting 60 yards. And again, we're using our top pin. So we sighted our top pin in for 20 yards and then used our dial to fine tune it, and then went back to 60 yards and made the adjustment on our dial. So at 20 yards, using my top pin, we were at mark number 3, and now at 60, we are at mark 43. So we have our two marks on our setup tape. So we're going to take 3 from 43, and that's 40. So we're going to go into the tape kit that came with your sight. And again, whether it's an Optimizer Lite, Ultra, or Kingpin, they all come with the pre-printed digital tapes. And at the top, there's going to be a little black number. So we're going to look for number 40. Once we have that tape, you match your 60-yard mark on your yardage tape and match it up with your 60-yard mark on the setup tape, and then wrap the tape around the wheel, and now your sight will be sighted in from 20 yards to 80 yards by the individual yard. And now we have our yardage tape installed. So all we have to do now is go back, start with our dial at the 20-yard mark, which is our starting position. Make sure our 20-yard pin is still sighted in, which it should be, and then just sight in your second and your third pin to whatever yardages you want. So once you have that top pin sighted in and your yardage tape found, all you have to do is just figure out what you want your second and third pin. So for me, I'm going to do 20, 30, and 40 for my pin setups just because of the gapping. They're not too close to where they become blurry, but there's a big enough gap to where the variance isn't that great, but yet it's big enough to where I can distinguish the 3 pins. So I got my 20-yard pin, my yardage tape on, and now I'm just going to go shoot 30 and 40 with my second and third pin, and we're ready to rock and roll. So now that our yardage tape's installed, we got all 3 of our pins sighted in to 20, 30, and 40. The next step is to basically figure out how do we use the 3 pin now. So we have 3 individual pins sighted in for 3 different yardages, and we have our yardage tape installed. So how do we put that all together? So let's say you wanted to shoot 30 yards. You have 2 different options. You can either just use your middle pin, but if you do that, your dial has to be turned down to the beginning at 20 yards to ensure that that 30 pin is where it should be. Or you could actually adjust your dial to 30 yards and then use your top pin. So that's kind of the beauty of a 3 pin movable, is you have all kinds of options. So the way I would run this sight is I would leave my dial at 20, have my 3 pins sighted in at 20, 30, and 40, and I would use those pins for those yardages. But let's say if you're hunting out west or you're at a 3D tournament and you have an exact yardage, you've ranged that distance and you want to shoot that exact yardage, and let's say it's 59 yards. You could either use your 40-yard pin and aim high and guess it, or you could adjust your sight to 59 and then use your top pin and shoot that exact yard. So like I said, you have options as far as how you want to use your 3 pin, but that's tying it all together. So the first step is finding your yardage tape. Second step is sighting in your other 2 pins to whatever yardages you want, and then just tying it all together. So I'm Scott with HHA Sports, and this is the 3 pin instructional video.